Iran is one of the most misunderstood countries in the world. For most people, Iran exists only through headlines, sound bites, and moments of crisis. Nuclear talks, sanctions, regional conflict, and hostility with the West tends to dominate the conversation. What's usually missing is context, history, and an understanding of how Iran's past shapes its present. That's why we're talking about Iran. This is not a one-off conversation. This is a series. This series is called Understanding Iran, and this is part one, History, Identity, and Foundations of Power. The goal of this series is not to argue policy, assign blame, or even push narratives. It's to explain how Iran became what it is today, how its systems were built, and how its leadership thinks about power, security, and survival. Without that foundation, nothing Iran does truly makes sense. Before we go any further, I want to briefly explain where I'm coming from, so you understand how this series is framed. For most of my career, I was considered a subject matter expert on Iran. I worked extensively with intelligence and operations related to Iran and its proxies. That experience gave me a working understanding of how Iran's military and intelligence services operate, both internally and externally. I can also speak, read, and write Farsi. Knowing that language helped me better understand the people, the culture, and the nuances behind Iran's motivations and actions. I'm not sharing this to posture or make claims of authority. I'm sharing it so you understand that this series is grounded in history, professional exposure, and long-term study, not speculation or headlines. Everything here will be framed analytically and historically, and not politically. With that context set, we have to start where Iran itself starts. Long before modern headlines, long before the Islamic Republic, and long before the Shah, what we now call Iran was known as Persia. Ancient Persia was one of the great civilizations of the world. Under rulers like Cyrus the Great and Darius I, the Achaemenid Empire stretched from the Mediterranean all the way to Central Asia. This empire was not defined only by conquest, but by governance, infrastructure, and a level of religious and cultural tolerance that was rare for its time. One of the most widely recognized moments of this era, largely because of popular culture, is the Battle of Thermopylae, which is the battle made famous by the movie 300. This battle took place in 480 BCE during the Greco-Persian Wars under Xerxes I. It occurred at the height of Persian imperial power, when Persia was expansive enough to project power deep inside the Greek world. While modern films often frame this as simply as East versus West, historically it reflects just how vast and dominant the Persian Empire already was. That ancient legacy still matters today. Many Iranians don't think of themselves as citizens of a young nation. They see themselves as inheritors of a civilization thousands of years old. That identity continues to shape how Iran sees itself and how it reacts to outside pressure. This brings us to one of the most common points of confusion. Persia and Iran are not opposing ideas. Persia refers primarily to the linguistic, cultural, and historical identity. Iran is the modern national identity. In 1935, the country formally requested the international community to use the name Iran, meaning the land of Aryans. This reflected a broader national identity, including Persian, Azeris, Kurds, Arabs, and others. Persia did not disappear. It became part of a larger national framework, and language reinforces this continuity. Farsi, or Persian, is an Indo-European language. Structurally and grammatically, it is closer to more European languages than it is to Arabic. However, it is written using a modified Arabic script. This change occurred after the Arab conquest of Persia. In the 7th century, when Islam spread across the region, Arabic became the language of religion, scholarship, and governance. Persian remained Persian, but adopted the Arabic writing system. The language stayed, but the script changed. Moving into the modern era, Iran's importance became less about an ancient empire and more about geography. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, Iran sits at the center of a great power competition, caught between British and Russian influence, what would become known as the Great Game. Its location made it a strategic buffer between empires. In the early 20th century, Reza Shah comes to power and begins an aggressive modernization campaign. His son, Mohammad Reza Shah, later rules during the Cold War and becomes a key ally of the United States. Under the Shah, Iran is positioned as a regional pillar against Soviet expansion. The military is modernized, Western education and culture expand, and economic growth accelerates. But modernization came at a cost. In 1953, Iran's democratically elected prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, is overthrown after nationalizing Iran's oil industry. Power consolidates around the Shah. and that's when the political repression intensifies. One of the most significant drivers of public resentment at the time is the Shah's secret police, the Savak. Savak becomes synonymous with surveillance, intimidation, detention. While Iran enjoys economic growth and certain social freedoms, political dissent is crushed. For many Iranians, especially students, religious leaders, and the working class, the Shah comes to represent corruption, inequality, authoritarianism, and foreign domination. This creates the conditions for the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Many people accept and even support the revolution not because they want religious strict rule, but because they are exhausted by repression, inequality, and the lack of a political voice. The revolution promises justice, independence, dignity, and freedom from foreign interference. What follows is not the system many expected. After the Shah is overthrown, Ayatollah Khomeini returns from exile, and Iran becomes an Islamic republic governed by a theocratic elite. In effect, one authoritarian system is replaced by another. During and after the revolution, there's a mass exodus from Iran. Hundreds of thousands and eventually millions flee the country. Many are members of the Shah's government, senior military officers, professionals, intellectuals, and business owners. Others leave simply because they see where the country is headed. This diaspora reshapes Iranian communities abroad and permanently alters Iran's internal social structure. One of the earliest defining moments of the new regime is the Iran hostage crisis, when American diplomats are taken hostage in Tehran. The failed U.S. rescue attempt, Operation Eagle Claw, becomes a defining moment not only in U.S. and Iranian relations, but also in American military history. The failure exposed several coordination problems and directly catalyzes the development of the modern special operations community today. Not long after, Iran is drawn into one of the most devastating wars in modern Middle Eastern history. The Iran-Iraq War begins in 1980 and lasts 8 bloody years. It kills hundreds of thousands and devastates both countries. This war fundamentally shapes Iran's military doctrine and worldview. From the U.S. perspective, post-revolution Iran is viewed as an unpredictable revolutionary threat. Iraq under Saddam Hussein is seen as a counterweight, but not a trusted partner. The U.S.'s goal is for either side not to win decisively. As a result, the U.S. policy at the time seeked to balance. Iraq received intelligence and battlefield information at various points, while covert actions such as the Iran-Contra affair involve arms transfers to Iran. From Iran's perspective, this reinforces a belief that no external power should be trusted. This war also explained one of the most misunderstood aspects of Iran today. Iran maintains two separate militaries. The regular armed forces, known as the Artesh, handle conventional defense. The Islamic Republic Guard Corps, or the IRGC, exists to protect the revolution itself, because the leaders of the Islamic Revolution did not fully trust the Iranian military, fearing that a number of their officers were still loyal to the Shah. That decision shaped everything that follows. Internally, Iran develops a young, educated, globally aware population living under a rigid, revolutionary system. Economic hardship, repression, and disillusionment fuel the reoccurring unrest. Protest movements are not anomalies, and these have only increased with time. They are reoccurring features of life under the Islamic Republic. This tension between an ancient civilization, a modern society, and a revolutionary system frozen in time defines Iran today. So in part one, what we've established is this: Iran is not just a headline. It is a civilization shaped by empire, intervention, revolution, war, and survival. Its government, military structure, intelligence services, and strategic behavior are direct products of that history. As we move forward in this series, we are also going to talk about how Iran projects power past its borders. That story does not start with tanks or fighter jets. It starts with an organization inside the IRGC that was built specifically for external operations, influence, and deniability, the Codes Force. We're not going to unpack that here just yet, but understanding how and why that organization exists will be critical in this series later on. If this breakdown has been useful so far, take a second to like this video. It helps more than most people realize. If you want to follow the rest of this series and more deep dives like this, make sure to hit that button and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel even further, consider becoming a member. It helps me to continue producing long-form, in-depth content like this. and helps these conversations reach the people who need them. In part 2, we will break down Iran's dual military system in detail, why the regime trusts one military over the other, how equipment, conscription, and ideology factor in, and why the structure exists by design and not by accident. Because to understand how Iran operates today, you have to first understand how Iran thinks.